Ever felt like the passion you have for an issue, injustice, or inequality could solve a much bigger problem in the world? Well, you wouldn't be the only one. And in fact, that's exactly where my journey began. But turning that passion into a purpose-driven business was not easy. There have been so many ups and downs along the way that I just had to figure out as I went along. But once I learned the key principles and lessons I needed to build a successful, purpose-driven social business, I started to unlock access to finance, build partnerships, expand our reach, grow my team, and most importantly, make a real impact. That's why on this season of The Social Corner, I've decided to pull back the curtains and share my insight with you on what it takes to help you build a thriving, purpose-driven social business. So, lock in for a season full of gems, insight, and more inspirational interviews as I dive deeper into social conversations, driving social change. Hey, I'm Daina Mpunzi, social entrepreneur, filmmaker, speaker, and consultant. And for the past 15 years, I've driven transformational changes in social economic development that have empowered people and change makers to shape the futures of their communities and reimagine their possibilities. I've built an impactful social business that is changing the lives of countless young people, raised in excess of £4.5 million to support social initiatives globally, and produced award-nominated documentaries uncovering social issues that have driven policy change. In today's episode, I'll be sharing some of my origin story with you and highlighting what I believe are 3 key points you should consider before you start your social business that will help you move your idea from passion to purpose with confidence. Well, if you're looking to start a social business, I'd warrant a guess that there's something you're pretty passionate about. For me, that realization came almost 2 decades ago when I was interning as a researcher at a production company in London. Catapulted into a whole new world, working on shows I'd been watching for years, it was one of the most thrilling and exciting periods of my life. But I was battling an internal crisis of self-confidence. I was a world away from everything I'd always known and understood, and I just felt like I wasn't the best at expressing myself. Over time, I found my way, but I couldn't help thinking about the lack of opportunities that existed for young people like me at that time, and how much more prepared I would have been for that moment if I had more exposure to different opportunities. Which leads me to my first point. Align your passion with a purpose. Being passionate is great, but passion without purpose can often just lead to frustration. What problem can you identify that needs solving, that deeply resonates with your values and who you are? Because that's what will keep you going. For me, I was passionate about reaching back and supporting young people on their journey forward. So I signed up for a mentoring program where I was paired with a young teenage girl from the inner city who had really just disengaged from school. At first, building a connection was difficult, but after a few weeks, I found that we were able to connect on some similarities. And once she realized we had more in common than we had different, she began to open up about how she couldn't see a way forward through education, which had left her feeling less than interested in school. After sharing my journey with education and giving her a look into my world in television, she was inspired to believe more was possible and started to re-engage in education at school, which led me to identify a greater purpose. Lack of meaningful opportunities was a key identifier in the causes of low aspirations amongst young people stemming from low socioeconomic backgrounds, which in itself has a knock-on effect to poor outcomes such as generational worklessness, antisocial behaviour, and poor educational outcomes. This left me with a seed of inspiration, but it wasn't until a few years later when a friend suggested I find a way to combine my passion for media and my passion for youth development that the idea for the first youth media project I developed came to life. Initially, all I really wanted was to create a space for young people to use media to express themselves. But over the years, that idea evolved into using media-based technology to develop young people in employability, education, and personal development skills. And voila, passion met purpose and Open Lens Media was born. For you, it may be something different. It may be mental health awareness, physical well-being, homelessness, education, What matters is asking yourself this question. What gets you out of bed in the morning that you can connect to a greater cause than just your passion? This leads me on to my second point. Identify the need for what you do. You need to be able to demonstrate that your service, product, or idea is needed, not just that it's a nice idea. Even though you may have lived experience of the issue or be aware of it, you still need to be able to frame it. So, how do you do that? By making a case for the need for your service or product. A very simple way to do this is by using the method I call IDEA. I identify the current situation, highlight what's happening and the negative impact it's having. D, define the desired outcome. In an ideal world, what would you like to see in relation to this issue? E, evaluate what it will take to get you there. Explain the cause or the causes of the gap you've identified and the effort it will require to reach the desired outcome. And finally, A, address the gap with your solution. Identify ways in which your proposal, project, business, or product can be a solution to closing the gap. Having a clear outline of your idea will help you to gain a much clearer picture of what exactly it is that you're doing and why it's needed. Lastly, start where you are. It is so tempting to get tied up in perfectionism, but let me help you out and save you some time. Perfect does not exist. I remember when I had to write certain bids or applications for the business, and I was just like, I can't do this until this is done and this is done and this is done. But the thing about that way of thinking was every time that thing that I thought needed to be done was done, something else needed to be done. So things just kept holding me back and I was just missing the opportunity. If you're battling with perfectionism, asking yourself some clarifying questions can help you get to the bottom of why and help you move forward. So the first question you could ask yourself is, what am I worried will happen if I go for this opportunity right now? Failure, not being ready for it, or proving some negative thought pattern that we might have about ourselves. Understanding the root cause here will help you gain a better picture of how to address it. A second question you could ask is, do I have enough of what I need in this moment to get started? It's easy to put roadblocks in front of ourselves when we think from a place of lack. How can you reframe some of that thinking? Instead of saying you don't have everything sorted, ask, what things do I have in my hand now that can help me do this? This happened to me. I went to church one Sunday and I was really in that place where I needed to really just get started with this company and stop doing projects, so to speak. But I was so worried about not having enough to get started. And the message that was actually being preached that Sunday was about Moses. And when God called him to go back to Egypt after he'd fled Egypt, to go and bring his children out of Egypt. And Moses was all, how am I supposed to do that? Why would they believe me? Etc., etc. And God turns to him and says, what do you have in your hands? Moses says, a staff, which he used to shepherd the sheep. And God says, throw it on the floor. And he does so, and it turns into a snake. And then says, pick it back up. And he does, and it turns back into a staff. And a number of miracles follow off from that. But the point of the story is that actually Moses had everything in his hands that he needed because God's power was with him. And that's what I understood for me in that moment, that actually I had everything I needed. I had a laptop, I had my senses, I had the applications that I could put in. I just needed to get started and trust the process. You might not be a person of faith, but I'm sure if you think about it, you have everything in your hands that you need right now. So just get started where you are. Identifying what you have in place that can help you move forward doesn't always have to be big. It could just be like me, like I said, you have a laptop and an application. The point is, start where you are, not where you think you have to be, because the starting line really is right now. So there you have it, my 3 key things that you should consider before you start your social business that will help you move from passion to purpose with confidence. For more on this episode, head over to my website at dainaandersonmpunzi.com and subscribe to download the episode guide. Don't forget to connect with me on social media. You can find all my social media handles in the bio, and make sure to join me next week, where I'll be joined by a remarkable guest on the Social Corner for another social conversation, driving social change.